Hello. Today I will be bringing you a cruiser that has been very much requested on my channel, and that is the Ibuki, the Tier 9 IGN cruiser. Now I do have a concealment expert captain on this guy, since I've switched over my new captain I'm leveling for the upcoming IGN DDs. So it's a 15-point captain that uses my pretty standard cruiser build. Meaning, of course, demolition expert, which I rate extremely highly, especially on Japanese cruisers, because they tend to use HE and the fire chance is already quite strong on this. Now, one of the first things you'll notice looking at the Ibuki is, of course, the fact that it's actually a bit higher in the water than the Atago, which is pretty awkward, considering you actually get citadeled much easier in this ship than you do in the Atago, simply because of this reason. But it does have advantages. I mean, there are a lot of disadvantages compared to the Atago, but there are advantages as well. One of them is the firing angles that you have. They are much better than the Atagos. You don't need to give nearly as much broadside. Here you can see really the profile of just how high in the water it is compared to the Atago. But the firing angles are significantly better. You can almost... There we go, at this angle you can shoot all the guns, and with the Atago you have to give significantly more broadside if you want to use all the guns, because otherwise you're basically leaving one of the turrets behind. I think it's the second back one that you're leaving behind. So that's of course an advantage. The other advantage is the fact that you can slot the tier 9 module, the 3 million module. I personally prefer the range one, because it allows you to stealth fire. Well, I didn't really get a chance to stealth fire here, considering I got spotted as soon as I fired because something is closer. It's probably that Ibuki. I think the stealth fire range is like 15.8. Trying to, of course, harass the battleship. Hitting cruisers from this range can be awkward, but the battleship you can hit somewhat well. I'm undetected now, which is nice, but... Two hits from the Bismarck. 2 citadels. So, that was my start of the game on this Ibuki. That kind of highlights just my case. What happens if you give broadside? I thought I was safe. The Bismarck was 20.9, well, 21 kilometers away. But I gave broadside, and as soon as I gave broadside in this thing, well, citadel. Of course, if you have gotten through the Mogami, then this kind of situation shouldn't be that much of a surprise to you. At least on the flip side, this time at least you have a heal. So, whereas on the Mogami that would kind of have been game over, for me it's a big crippling blow, but it's not the end of the game, as thanks to the heal, and of course the fact that I use Superintendent and the premium one, so I have extra charges, I'm able to heal up a significant amount of the damage. That's of course unique to the cruisers. Cruisers can heal up more citadel damage than battleships can, which is of course unique, but considering there's more HP pools and how easy it is to citadel them, it's definitely something that they need. Now I'm just kiting, keeping my distance, trying to get some shells or trying to get some hits on these guys, but in general I just want to stay away from them because all their battleships are down there, and you don't really want to be engaging in straight up fights against any battleships. I mean, just like any other cruiser, you don't really want even fights against battleships because that's where their advantage is. So I'm just kiting them, using the range to my advantage, trying to get some fire started and just spamming HE from max range. And hopefully trying to get undetected so I can actually stealth fire, but it looks like some... Oh, here we go. Here's the reason why I can't get undetected. There's a Fletcher who has pushed through A and is hunting me. Well, he's obviously my next target then. I'm gonna see if I could nail him instead. The torpedo angles are of course not nearly as good as the Atago torpedo angles, but the torpedoes are extremely deadly. They deal a lot of damage, and you should use them frequently in your games. I use them constantly. I would say I've even used the torps more on the Ibuki than I do on the Atago, simply because you end up doing so much kiting backwards and such in this ship, and you end up doing basically... It's strange actually, but I'm pretty sure that on average I get more torpedo hits in the Ibuki than I do in the Atago. I'm not really certain what the reason is. It might be just because it has a more kiting playstyle compared to the Atago, which I kinda abuse the stealth to get close, and you can't really long range it in the Atago the same way you can in the Ibuki because of the differences in range. Jesus, sorry about that. Fletcher is still of course on my back, so I have to constantly keep turning and constantly keep avoiding, because I don't want to end up in the situation where I was earlier, where I got caught with 2 citadels. The gearing got spotted. Obviously switch my target to him. Of course, another thing with the Ibuki is that you have very high fire chance. Just like most IGN 203mm guns, when you have 10 of them, you tend to set a lot of fires. It's not quite up to the ZA standard, because it has even more guns, but it's very potent. And the arcs are quite good, so you don't really have issues hitting DDs at long range, and when you do hit, you see just how much damage you cause to them. DDs really don't want to get into this sort of distance from you, because if you have practiced your aim with first with the Myoko and then with the Mogami, potentially even with an Atago on the way, you should be able to nail those shots fairly well. And of course, shooting DDs gives you a lot of XP, since the game rewards XP percentage based, meaning doing 50% to a Fletcher is just as rewarding as doing 50% to a Friedrich der Grosse. So that's of course highly valuable. Now there's a Cyclone is hitting undetected, which is not the nicest thing here, since I'm trying to keep the island between me and the Bismarck. I think that's the Bismarck that wrecked me earlier. But here I'm trying to use what I said earlier. Of course, I know there's DDs in that smoke. I see the Bismarck is sailing towards that smoke as well. In other words, that's a perfect place to send my torps. There's potential to hit multiple targets, which is exactly what I want, so that's where I send my torps. I use the smoke between me and him, but yeah, it doesn't really, not gonna... Oh, there we go. Fletcher is smoking up in front of me. So I'm gonna go occupy his smoke and sit in that one. Because USDD smoke, of course, lasts the longest out of all the smokes. So if he decides that's a good spot to smoke up, I have absolutely no qualms about hijacking it. And that's something I recommend you do quite often. Because just like the Atago, you get a sub 10 kilometer concealment, which means you can actually sneak in there with the DDs. And you can sneak in and take over their smokes. Oh, the gearing ate one of my torps, so he died, and I landed another 3-4 torps, probably on the Bismarck I was aiming for. Those torps are quite fast and they hit quite hard, so that was a significant chunk of damage. I see the Amagi, finish him off, and honestly this smoke was just popped, so I don't really have much of a hurry to leave this place. If you find positions like this, it's very nice to just sit in them. Of course, there's risks involved with sitting full broadside, but I'm thinking that this battle is too hectic for anyone to really pay attention or get the opportunity to torp me in this smoke right now. So I'm just going to take advantage of it and sit here. Because the firepower on the Ibuki is strong. Of that there is no doubt. If you let it just hammer at the target, all those fires are going to burn down just about anything very, very quickly. And the AP is also quite strong if you manage to land the perfect volleys. Damn, the Ibuki just disappeared. I don't think I'll get the perfect volley there. Switch to AP because broadsiding Japanese cruiser. I did get a nice chunk of damage on him though. Bismarck showed himself. It looks like he's flooding from the torps he took from me. I guess his repair was down. Oh, my shells won't even have time to land before he dies, I think. Mogami, of course, another extremely squishy cruiser. But he's turning away. Bad timing. Oh, smoke is fading. The Ibuki got deleted. Mogami turned so much that he actually bounced my shells. Not really getting a good chance to show off the AP here. I'm trying to find a good opportunity to show off the AP, but this isn't really being it, is it? Another Cyclone hit, so I've lost vision. I got one overpin and 2 bounces on a Mogami. Really? Wow. Really not helping me right now. There's an Ibuki and Aiba coming from the right. There's still that Mogami down there that I could hunt. There's also potentially the Edinburgh. Let's try to find ourselves a test victim that I can show off the AP on. Because the ship isn't as bad. I mean, the Ibuki has never actually been that bad. It's always been a pretty good T9 ship. A pretty good T9 cruiser. I mean, if you have survived with the Mogami, this really shouldn't be much of an issue for you, because compared to the Mogami you get so many advantages. You get much better anti-air, which Mogami's anti-air is absolute shit. You get massively better range thanks to being able to slot the 3 million range module. And well, you're still a squishy, but I mean, Matchmaking doesn't get any worse. If you're Mogami and you end up against T10s, well, now you're Ibuki and you end up against tier 10s. You just have it better. You're still squishy, yes, but at least on the flip side, now you have a heal that allows you to heal back a lot of the damage you lost, as long as you don't get instantly deleted. So, I mean, it doesn't feel like that big of an upgrade. Honestly, the biggest upgrade is the 3 million upgrade that you can buy, and the consumables. The ship itself feels very, very similar. And if you have played Atago a lot, then the ship should also feel very similar. You just have to play it in a more, I would say, more range, more defensive playstyle. If you consider, I started this game by eating 2 citadels and I lost all my HP, and I haven't really taken much damage since then. Well, wow, no citadels, but I did at least get to delete the enemy Ibuki. I was dodging my torps with ease. Now, this is of course one of the problems compared to the Atago when you torp with the Ibuki, is that it's very telegraphed. When you see a Japanese cruiser make that kind of turn, if you have any sort of experience in this game, you should know that there's torps coming, and that's exactly what this Aiwa does. He sees that there's torps coming, so he turns away and he dodges them quite easily, in fact. And that's of course the issue. And he did nail me quite hard there, but not really any citadels because I keep angling away from him, just a general ton of damage. The game is about to end, so all I really need to do is survive at this point. At this point I could use AP. AP on broadsiding battleships does a significant amount of damage, but this game is just about to end and I'm basically just trying to get the last few shells off before the timer ticks over. He tries to kill me, doesn't get enough damage because I angle. The game ends right after, and I mean 141k damage. Ignore the tons of missions, it's the recent update that has given all these. But in general, I mean the XP is pretty good. It was a T8 to T10 game, which is pretty much the usual stuff you'll be facing. Mostly T8 to T10s. I mean, you'll face a lot of the both. Sometimes you'll end up against T7s, but I don't really feel. I mean, a commentary on that. It's not. It's so rare. In a T7 you end up against T5s very often, but in a T9 it's actually kind of rare to end up against T7s. And of course the damage, looking at the damage, this one actually didn't show off the long range HE that well because I got so little fire damage. So let's in fact move on to the next game. Right, so another game, and in this one of course once again T8, T10, well there's only a few T8s in this one, it's mostly T9s and a couple T10s, which is once again a fairly equal battleground of what you might expect. I mean, if I commented on a T7, I have no issues making a game where you're against T5s, because that's so common these days, ever since 0.5.9. But at T9, you kind of tend to face your own tier opponents the most, really. It seems to be the most frequent opponents you face. But that shouldn't really come as any sort of news to you if you have played the Mogami before. You should be used to facing your own tier opponents. Now here I'm actually going to make use of my concealment. Now you can see the transparent circle on the minimap, just how small it is. I really like the A-cap with defensive cruisers or high concealment cruisers, because you might even be able to sneak into A and you get behind a cliff there, which is a perfect place to hide. However, spotting the Moskva makes me rethink that plan. I can't even hide in any of the smokes because it's simply too risky, because Moskva radar can ruin those plans. So I tried to get some shots on him instead. Shooting, however, instantly gets me detected, so that lets me know that there's someone already closing in. Turns out it's a Zao. I get undetected right after I get out of range from him. And I shoot again and I'm not detected. So the cap is probably clear at this point, unless there's someone hiding behind the island. That's the good part though, you can shoot back at those long-range cruisers. It's kind of frustrating in both the Mogami and the Atago when you get shot at by these really long-range cruisers, or battleships for that matter, and you're not really able to reply. All you can do is get into stealth and hope to close the distance. But in the Ibuki, thanks to the range, you can actually make use of it, and I recommend making use of it. And also, let's try to start this game without eating 2 citadels right at the start, so I can play a bit more of the usual style instead of having to play so safe, so to say. Of course, I'm not shooting yet, I'm waiting for my turrets to turn. I can easily close the distance some more thanks to the excellent stealth. Those are Shimakaze torps? Yep, oh, and there's the Shimakaze. Yeah, when you should always count the torps. When you count 15 torps, that's like an automatic sign going up. Ding, 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 Shimakaze over here. Taking some shots at him, and I'm turning hard away. You don't want to be giving too much broadside. You saw how many battleships they had. I got undetected here, which is nice. But I really don't want to be brawling in there with the likes of the Grosse. Since those big caliber guns don't really care too much about your angling, and in general, as I said, that this thing is quite the floating citadel, so you don't really want to get too close. Rather, I take my distance and I spam HE, which does a significant amount of damage. And as I mentioned, the fire chance is great. Instantly 2 fires, he repairs. As I've said before in my Bidioni commentary, if a battleship repairs your fires, that means he's become your favorite target from then on, because that means any fires you land afterwards are naturally permanent. Keeping myself angled, turning myself all the time to make sure I'm not too much of an easy target to all these battleships who obviously want to hit you, because they all know just how squishy you are. Getting some good damage in on him, but still no fires. I think that's the last volley I'm gonna get on him before he disappears around the mountain. I'm gonna dip behind a cliff. Here's a brave Izumo. Ah, nice. I did get one last fire on him. Can I actually shoot him still? Just barely. Man, the range really is insane with the range module. That's why I really recommend range module, because it gives you so much more utility. You can still deal damage while disengaging, like I'm doing here. Basically the entire time all I've been doing is sailing away and disengaging, and I'm still able to land shells, and I get another fire on him as I turn away. That's what 2 unrepairable fires that will now be ticking on that guy. That's a lot of damage he's going to be eating, and I've already disengaged, I'm in stealth, I'm safe. So I try to find another target, another battleship this time. Once again, instantly spotted, not really being given much of a chance to stealth fire here. This Shimakaze is probably the culprit. Or alternatively, it could be something that capped B that's the culprit. Oh, I got undetected. Once again, instant fire. The fire chance, very potent. Of course, I recommend Demolition Expert very highly on the Ibuki for this reason especially. Because you want to be starting those fires. Oh, there we go. It was the Fubuki that caught me spotted this time. Kinda tempted to shoot him, but he's awkwardly right behind the cliff, so it's a very hard shot to really hit. Rather keep working on the Amagi at this point. What you see, what I did there real quick, you saw how I quickly switched to the torps. I wasn't actually planning on torping the guy 15 kilometers away. I was just getting a general gauge of his speed. Much like I often do in the turpits, and I often recommend doing in the turpits, switch to torpedoes to see what speed your target is moving at before you take your shot. I think that fire might have even run out. Wow, okay. Our Fletcher just deleted that Fubuki, which means I can pretty much stealth fire at this point. Yay! I think it's the first time in this commentary that I've actually gotten stealth fire. So that kind of shows how not that valuable it is. I mean, I guess you could say I don't get the range or the stealth for the stealth fire on the ship, because that's kind of an extra thing. That's a bonus. If you get the chance to use it, man, that's fantastic. But those aren't really the ultimate goals. Mostly it's the range for the sake of range, and the stealth for the sake of being able to sneak up on targets, reposition, disengage, all these things that I value more than just being able to stealth fire. Because once again, 15.8 minimum range is kind of awkward to be able to stealth fire from. Unless you play extremely defensively, and I don't like playing extremely defensively in the Ibuki because it doesn't really have the same firepower or the same... Yeah, it just doesn't have the same firepower as Za, where sitting at that range and stealth firing does so much more work than the Ibuki does. You're not quite up to that tier yet. Speaking of the devil, Ibuki and Za coming my way. I'd rather shoot the Za then. Clearly the bigger threat out of those two. A lot of big hitters coming from there. Moskva, Za. The smoke is nicely covering me from him. No real fires, but that was what, 5k damage? Considering the Zao has 40k HP, that's a good chunk of his HP. Of course I keep working on him. There we go, first fire. However, this Zhao isn't panicking at all. He's saving his repair. I think he's gonna get behind the island and that's when he's going to repair, which makes me think he's probably knows what he's doing in the Zhao. I'm gonna try to get one more shot at him. Thanks to the range, I might be able, I'm not certain if I'll hit the... No, I did get another fire. But at this point I expect him to be... Am I still taking damage? No, the damage ticking stopped, as I said. As soon as he got behind the island, he used the repair. Which is, of course, intelligent play, something I highly recommend people do. Save your repair for when you get into cover, then you can heal up and such in cover. Don't use your repair while you're in the open, if you can avoid it, because if you use it then, well, you're just gonna have another fire set on you, and then you just have to suffer it while you're in cover. In this case, I switched to AP though, since this Ibuki is giving me broadside. Maybe I'll finally get to show off the AP on this ship. Hey, well, 2 citadels. It could have been better, honestly. The closer you are, the easier it's, of course, to land those citadels. But the AP is actually very, very strong on this ship, if you're close enough and if you get the broadsides to shoot at it. Then someone else, I think a battleship, decided to take a huge chunk out, but I landed another 2 citadels and deleted the enemy Ibuki. The Zhao looks like he is turning away. Time to face the next problem, the Donskoy. Now the Donskoy, much like the Russian T9 and T10, they both have very, very strong AP, so I'm obviously keeping angled. You don't want to be giving full broadside. I'm hoping he'll turn out. I have AP loaded, so I'm kind of saving my shot. I'm hoping he'd turn out and turn away from me. He's got HE loaded. He is shooting me out of all the possible targets, but he's still not turning out. I'm really saving my shots. I'm hoping he would turn out, but it looks like this guy is just going to... He's just dedicated to going all the way in. Well, I am a bit above him then, and I shoot for his superstructure, since I don't see any chance of penning his bow from this range and from at that angle, so I just go for the superstructure damage. The Zhao is, however, coming across the corner. I'm trying to rush into the Shimakaze smoke, so I could get undetected, since you don't want to be trading AP against the Zhao broadside versus broadside. That can get painful real fast. 5 overpens. Okay, that was very unfortunate. Once again, as I mentioned in the other game, whenever you see an opportunity for your torpedoes, use them. In this case, Friedrich der Grosse is closing the distance extremely quickly, so of course I use my torpedoes on him. That huge battleship doesn't have an easy time dodging. At close range, honestly, you don't really want to be taking him on unless it's with torpedoes. Long range, whittle them down with fire. Close range torpedoes, in general, you don't want to be fighting them. You want to be taking on stuff like the cruiser. Oh, he's not going to be dodging those. Yep, that's some heavy hits. Unfortunately, can't say the same about the Zhao. He's wiggling, and oh, and the game already ended. We reached the full points. On about 10k less damage than the other one. I had 141k, I think. Now I got 132k. But this time it was less about the torpedo damage and actually more about the fire damage. As you can see, almost reached Wither, 44k. It's not unusual to get Wither on the Ibuki. On the Zhao it happens much more frequently, of course, thanks to the increased firepower, which means increased fires. But you still tend to start your fair amount of fires. I mean, that's the same Grosse that I set on fire earlier, so I actually did 67k damage just to him. So I hope this gives you an idea of how you want to be playing the ship, like how you want to use all your strengths, and you want to which is of course your long range and your powerful HE and AP shells, and of course torpedoes, but at the same time you want to avoid giving anyone a free broadside at any time, because even though you have the firepower, you are extremely squishy. Anyway, let's move on to the build part of the commentary. Right, as usual, I'll start with the modules. Now the first thing you should get, in my opinion, is the hull upgrade. The range, if you mount the 3 million upgrade, is 17.4 without the upgrade, so you don't really need that first. So the first module I recommend is the hull. It gives you rudder shift, it gives you HP, it gives you anti-air, all these juicy things that you need to personally stay alive. The torpedo upgrade isn't that big of a deal. I mean, it gives you some extra damage, some extra speed, but you should get the range second. So hull first, range second, and once you have those goodies, then you can get the torpedo upgrade and start working your way to the Zao itself. You got a long grind ahead of you, so might as well fully pimp out the Ibuki. Consumable wise, damage control, premium, and of course the repair party. Not only lower cooldown, but it gives you another charge, which you saw can come in very useful. Upgrade wise, main armaments 1, aiming systems 1. Now you can use the AA mod. Mostly, if you use it, it's mostly to increase the range of your defensive AA, because honestly the AA isn't that special. I mean, you got a 5 km range, and the AAs, if you're never gonna be a AA heavy hitter, like for example the Baltimore or the Donskoy, which are T9 heavy anti-air hitters, you're never gonna be one of those. But if you have somebody, or you have somebody who has issues with that and you want to cover him, then slotting the AA range just to increase the panic range of defensive AA is an option. But I don't really like using it. Gunfire control, the 3 million upgrade that I spoke much about, and you saw how much I used it. Use it to increase your range. And damage control, steering gears for that rudder shift, and of course finally stealth. Once again, another thing you saw me use very much, and you use it to get that juicy 9.7 km stealth. Captain perks wise, basics of survivability, expert marksman, superintendent, additional heal, very important, and demolition expert, you want those fires started on every shell, and concealment expert. The last 3 points I'm saving up for, well, if this was a cruiser captain, it would be for vigilance. In fact, I can show you my Zao captain, and you can see it's the exactly same build, except I have the 3 points into vigilance. So this is my optimal IGN cruiser build. Anyway, that is the end of my Ibuki commentary. I hope you guys enjoyed it.